Everyone, welcome to the Savage Patriots. In today's episode, we will be covering all of the laws that were put in place to protect Black people. Although some of the cases may not really fit your narrative, please be aware that this is not our opinion, this is history. This is what took place. We shall be right back. And welcome back to the Savage Patriots. Today we'll be discussing the Black rights in the United States of America. Now, what you're going to hear today may upset you, but then again, like I said, this is not our doing. This is this is just history. Okay, this is just what took place. We can't help this. This is just how it is. And if you don't like the truth or the facts that we're gonna present,
It's
well,
kind of on you.
kind of on you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what sparked this was we found a old archive of Mr. Harry Belafonte. You know, when people die, all the stuff they said always comes to the surface for some reason. People find stuff they did back in 1825, and then they say, "Remember when you did that?" And then it comes forward because you're dead now. They can talk crap about you. But with Harry, I never took to Harry. I knew about his music, obviously, because he kind of off the wall kind of represented people from the so-called Caribbean islands kind of thing, and the stereotype of the Caribbean with banana boats and all that stuff. But I never really cared too much about his political stance because I never watched or listened to him. The same thing I thought about Sidney Poitier. That's never thought about them in that realm because they never injected themselves into it. They may have their viewpoint, but they didn't make it a point to be an activist. So when for one, saw this video clip, I was blown away. But then again, I realized that he had more nuts than most people could ever have to do what he did and say what he said. So, what we are going to do first off is play for you a section of a 2 hour long town hall that he did back in 2005. Um, I just hope that you guys pay close attention to what he said, and then we will break down what he said in the context of what he said, and then apply what laws were done to either discredit what he said or to credit what he said. That makes sense? All right, so here's what we're going to do
Indeed.
first. We're going to roll that beautiful bean footage.
Sticker
Go.
that
Pay attention,
says
people.
Clinton, Obama. I don't know why.
You're gonna get me in trouble. Well, we started it here.
I was just thinking that I wasn't supposed to say it, but it just keeps. Harry Belafonte, thank you. Thank you for a lifetime of commitment and struggle. And it's.
Thank you.
It's probably like I'm sitting between these two demons.
There
That's why he
is
did
no
that.
one who has traveled as far
Yes.
in terms of being there for the people, not just in these great United States, but throughout the continent of Africa, Asia, Europe, throughout the Caribbean, and has never, never, never backed away from controversy. A man who was the 21st century's example of the great Frederick Douglass, who speaks truth to power. And you should know that we not only appreciate it, but we respect what you do and what you stand for, unbought, unbossed, and unbowed. That is unique in America today. Thank you. Mr. Belafonte, having traveled, you've been down to Louisiana, we've seen you, having addressed some of these issues. What do you want to appeal to this audience to do and to America watching this? What do we need to do to make sure that the issues that we have witnessed over the last month are not allowed to disappear? What's our charge from you?
Buckle up.
You know, the last thing Dr. King said to me before he was murdered was in my home when we were sitting planning strategy for the Poor People's Campaign, which was on the horizon of the politics of the day. That's why he went to Memphis. And in the course of that meeting, he seemed distracted and a little on the underfocused. And when we asked him what was the matter, Martin said, you know, I've been thinking long and hard about our struggle. We worked tenaciously for our rights. And the culmination of all that effort will be reflected in what we've come to call the integration movement. And I sit here deeply concerned that I suspect we're leading our nation on an integration trip that has us integrating into a burning house. I don't think we quite understood how pathetic that remark was. After all, we're in the midst of a very heady moment in our struggle. We were winning on a lot of frontiers. Bull Connor had been confronted. The bus boycotts had worked. Votes were coming. Even Lyndon Baines Johnson had been struck by the spirit and got up and talked about we shall overcome in the Congress. And for Dr. King to have been in this place at a time when we seemed to be making great headway was a moment to pause and reflect. That reflection has taken longer than I had suspected it would, but it has certainly come to reveal itself fully when we look at the condition in which we find not only our world, but in particular, our nation. The wreckage that's taking place down in the Gulf region, the southwest part of the United States, is not the only wreckage that exists. We have a lot of wreckages around this country. And perhaps the most distracting and perhaps the most important wreckage to take a look at is really the wreckage of the Democratic Party. I've been a Democrat all my life. I have no treaty with the Republicans, nor do I really seek one. But the Democratic Party was not always our friend. As a matter of fact, a lot of what we had to struggle against was in the possession and the power of Democrats who came from the South. And when we showed them the tenaciousness and the conviction and the sense of great purpose that the people of this nation had into transforming our condition, all those Democrats from the South ran off and became Republicans as an act of punishment for what we were trying to achieve as a people. And that punishment continues to play itself out. Eleanor Roosevelt was a close friend. And once sitting in Hyde Park with her, she told a story about a great black leader by the name of A. Philip Randolph. He was one of the great giants of the century, certainly one of the great thinkers. And she recalled an evening when A. Philip Randolph had been invited to a dinner at the White House. And just he and her and the president, Franklin Roosevelt. And during the course of the dinner, the president invited Mr. Randolph to speak his thoughts. And for a long time, A. Philip Randolph held forth on every list of grievances he could think of for the people in the labor movement, for the people who were poor, for black people, and Roosevelt permitted him to hold forth without any interruption until he concluded. At the end of it, Roosevelt reached for a box of cigars, passed one around to Philip, and as he slowly lit the cigar, he turned to Philip Randolph and he said, "Philip, let me tell you, I've heard everything you've said. I've missed absolutely nothing. And there's nothing that you've said that I disagree with. And I do, in fact, have the platform to be able to make the transformation work that you're looking for, and I guess we're all looking for. I have just one request of you, and it is for you to go out and make me do it." It seems to me that There will be no loftier statements and no greater speeches to be made than have already been made. Certainly Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Fannie Lou Hamer down in Atlantic City when she challenged with the Freedom Mississippi Democratic Party. There are a lot of people who have made speeches that are as eloquent as will ever be written. And we've listened to a lot of redundancy. A lot of people who've carefully selected the phrases and applied them to the moment. What eludes us is the bankruptcy of the action itself. This poverty that our country is witnessing has never gone away. Most of the politicians I know of have visited these places of poverty. They make it their business when they're running for the highest office in this nation to go into the heart of our pain, our anguish, our indignities, and make promises only to walk into the places of power and then deny us. I guess part of the reason I'm here is to really look through the ravages of the Democratic Party and see if anything is really worth salvaging.
Oh.
Because when
That
Dr. King
burns.
said, we're integrated into a burning house, we said to him, what do we do about it? He said, we're just going to have to go out and become firemen. Well, maybe that's what my humble task is. To find the truck, get the hose, and know where to turn it on.
All right, pause right there. So he said a mouthful over the time. I think that's a good place to stop because that was the crux of his statement anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I volunteered tribute to go first. Obviously, he believed in the Southern strategy,
Yes.
and that's one of his very first mistakes is believing that, because the very next statement he makes about whether or not the Democrat Party should be salvaged proves that it didn't change from the time that the so-called switch happened to right now when you can't trust them.
Right.
That's right.
Either the ones that were against you fled to the Republican Party, or, and the Democrats are fine, or they didn't. And they're not fine, hence why do you find nothing salvageable, Mr. Belafonte? Number two, while it was brave of him to say that it was a very thing to be questioning the salvageability of the Democrat Party, in the same mouth that he said that, he started talking about how great the Democrat Party was to black people. So I can't understand whether or not he thinks they're good or they're not good and they're not salvageable, which tells me that he doesn't believe half the crap he said.
I agree.
While he might be brave and all that stuff, he was not the person that he was portraying there. If you listen to how he spoke, he never spoke like that when he had interviews. I'm sorry to say that Mr. Belafonte was just another one of the shills of the black leader community that knew how to talk eloquently and speak like a preacher. And he could speak enough truth to keep you on a limb and to break that limb whenever he felt the need.
Sounds like it.
So as for his statements of the Democrat Party, whether it can be salvaged, because nothing has changed since they started voting Democrat. Poverty is still a situation that they had to live with, and they can't get over it. I need to know from Mr. Belafonte's camp, because I know you did, whether or not you think black people should be voting for Democrat despite having nothing to show for it. Like, I mean nothing. Like, you ain't got jack to show for voting for Democrat. Like, you couldn't have less of nothing to show.
Yeah, but I mean, when he was talking, it immediately threw me off when he talked about a bunch of Republicans. When they saw how pretty much strong and tenacious black people were, they jumped up and went to the Republican Party. Now, those of us that know true history know that that never happened. There was 2 Democrats that actually left. I think it was Strom Thurmond and
in the
one other
Senate.
guy.
Yeah, and there were 12 in the Congress at the time.
Yes, and they created the Dixiecrats. The Dixiecrats never fell through. So obviously, those 2, I know one for a fact, became a Republican. But the way he was saying it's like all these Democrats just woke up one day and was just like, you know what, we're Republicans now. It didn't happen like that. But like you were saying, I think he had an epiphany why he was talking, because he was talking down to the Democratic Party. But he had 2 of the most prominent leaders of the Democratic Party on that stage with him. So a lot of stuff he would say it, and then he would backtrack and probably thought about what he said. It was like, and you know how people do that. They'll say something horrible about you, but then they'll backtrack and say something nice about you to take your mind off what they said earlier. That's kind of what he was doing. And you're right. When he brought up like Martin Luther King, everybody, if you knew the true history of Martin Luther King, yes, he started a movement. But if you go dig deep into Martin Luther King, you will see he has a lot of skeletons in his closet. And he threw out Martin Luther King, but there was a lot of other prominent Black leaders out there that weren't in a spotlight like Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Black Republicans that were fighting for the same thing.
Yep. Then you also back to that whole thing of Martin Luther King not being a perfect person. Neither was Gandhi either, but he liberated an entire country from the English. So it's you can't put your heroes on a pedestal. Basically, is what everybody's human. You can like what they do, but you can hate their actions at the same time. So for my point of view of this is that I challenge Black Americans to think of one good thing the Democratic Party has done for Black people in the last 60 years. Like one act, one thing that they've passed that has actually helped you. Like, it's really tough. And I thought really hard about it to try to think what's something that they've done that's actually helped Black folks. Because one of the biggest legislations that have done the most damage to Black folks in America is the guy that's in the White House right now in the 1994 crime bill, right? That was led by Bill Clinton, a Democrat president and a Democrat leadership who is now in the White House, is the one that sent most of the Black fathers to prison. So what has the Democratic Party done for you in total? Because I can't think of anything. JD, you got anything?
And a lot of people aren't going to give you an answer, because what tends to happen within the Black community in the Democratic Party, they vote Democrat because their family voted. So it was just a thing. My mama did, my grandma did, my great grandma did. They all voted Democrat, so I'm voting Democrat. I don't really know why I'm voting Democrat, because you guys talk about all the time how the Democratic Party does nothing. They promise things, like Mr. Belafonte said. They promise things. They'll come to your neighborhoods and talk at your town halls and go to your churches and talk in a Southern slang and play dominoes and put hot sauce in their purse. But when they get to where they're getting, what do you get? Let's take California, for example. Recently, they were pushing reparations. Push. Gavin Newsom, push. Getting everybody hyped up. Yeah, California. Then what happened? They make promises, and then they don't follow through. And I'm not saying Republicans are any better, but Republicans follow through with a lot more stuff than the Democrats do. I'm just saying.
Well, not only that, but from what I've recently seen, as far as historical habits, not only do they fall short on what it is they promise, but in the same breath, they also demonize certain areas. Like, for instance, they're pulling that with Florida, with the NAACP. Like, Florida is dangerous for Black people. Meanwhile, Californian Democrats are sitting there going, reparations for all of these Black people here in our state, blah, 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 but they don't follow through. And yet the same, so there's this double-mindedness within trying to win clout while at the same time demonizing the very party that did more historically to help the Black community. And from my vantage point, from what I've seen, is that when you try and force human nature to bend to how you want it to legally, it doesn't work. And I think that's what the whole integration thing was about.
Yeah.
What do you think? Well, would you think one of the major issues with the Democratic Party is that there's too many subgroups within that party? that
None
can't.
of those
That could be the
subgroups
same
go
about the
against their main
Republican Party
narrative, though.
too.
Not
Okay.
one of those subgroups go against their main narrative. They all support their
Yeah.
main narrative and explode it across the places that they attack. Not one of those subgroups, not Antifa, not the NAACP, not Media Matters, none of them push anything that the Democrats as a main body aren't pushing. It's all the same
Yeah.
thing. I took a
I
look
mean, I would
at
even go so. Sorry, I would just go even so far as to say like some of the bills that nobody asked for is like
that's what I
like
was getting to. Yeah.
like yeah, I mean like the anti-Asian hate bill that they try to push. No Asian asked for that, but at the same time, it's like we want to by proxy help Black people because of discrimination, but it was like this weird sort of Trojan horse type thing again, which seems to be historically habitual.
It's a loaded with the tags and lights and flashing decals Trojan horse. They're telling you it's a Trojan horse. That's how, you know. So I looked at the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And in section 201, 42 USC 2000A, all persons shall be entitled to the full and equal enjoyment of the goods, services, facilities, privileges, advantages, and accommodations of any place of public accommodation as defined in this section without discrimination or segregation on the ground. Listen carefully to mind you, before I finish this state in the sentence, this was signed off by MLK and also backed up by Jesse and every other Black leader at the time. Before I read the next part, remember what they said they were fighting for: Black rights. Pretty sure we have that unequivocally. That's what they wanted, right? It was a skin color issue. Okay, good. Without discrimination or segregation on the ground of race, color, religion, or national orientation, or national origin, sorry. Each of the following establishments which serves the public is a place of public accommodation within the meaning of this title if its operations affect commerce and if discrimination or segregation by its supported state action, any motel, any restaurant, cafeteria, lunchroom, any picture house, motion theaters, city hall, establishment, or any physically located premise that would be covered by this context. Now, mind you, from the very beginning, this was not about Black people. They lumped everything else into it. Okay, listen carefully. Discrimination or segregation by an establishment is supported by state and an establishment supported by state action within the meaning of this title if such discrimination or segregation is A, carried under color of any law, statute, ordinance, or regulation, or B, is carried on under color of any custom or usage requirement or enforced by official of the state or the political division thereof, is required by action of the state and political subdivision thereof. In other words, all the numbers and things we said before about the race, creed, color, religion, the discrimination will be penalized thusly. Not quite sure he had figured out the religion unless you look at the look of the person. So obviously they're right away going against everything Martin Luther King already said. They're already judging. The Civil Rights Act is enforcing the judging of skin color, not content. I hope people realize that. Just the last thing I'm going to say about it is the amendment that was recently done to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In case you all missed it, the White House in 21 passed something called the Equality Act. I don't know how many of you knew about the Equality Act, but here's something for the Equality Act. The Equality Act would amend the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Listen carefully now. Remember who the 1964 Civil Rights Act was birthed through and from. Black people, right? Okay. The Equality Act would amend the 1964 Civil Rights Act to explicitly, which means it in bold, italics, underline, highlighted, explicitly prevent discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity.
There it is. There it is.
Yep.
They never made an amendment for black people. Who started the Civil Rights Act? They never made an amendment to 100% protect black people. Democrats. After the so-called Southern strategy, after the so-called party switch, today's Democrats took the 1964 Civil Rights Act and amended it to explicitly forbid the discrimination for the trans and queer community on the bill that was supposed to be preventing discrimination against black people.
Yep.
So after 60 plus years, all you get is just like Rosa Parks. You can sit your black behind in the back of the bus, shut the hell up, and be happy. But you keep voting Democrat. This is why we call you all stupid that vote for Democrat. This is why we call you stupid, because you don't think about nothing. When you vote for Democrat, you are voting for your own demise. They set apart a bill. This white supremacist fool that's in power right now, that y'all voted for, that decrepit anomaly, that is who you voted for. He signed something to amend your bill to exclude you from it. I want you to make that make sense for me.
Would you call this some sort of legislative buck breaking in a sense?
It's legislative lynching.
That too.
And it's not, I can't even call it lynching or buck breaking because they're volunteering for this crap. They're signing up for it. It's not even like they're coercing Negroes anymore. The stupid ones are signing up for it with their hands out and pants down. And we must feel bad for you? I ain't feeling bad for you. You're dumb enough to do it. Take it. Take
and
that bag all you want.
And a lot of these black Democrats are buying right into it. You know, they're pushing this homosexuality on black men mainly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're buying into it. You know, they're right there. Democrats are like, yeah, we got them. They're gonna push it. This is why they have groups like Black Lives Matter, who is against the nuclear family.
And they're
who
gay.
wants to, because they're trying to take masculinity out the black house. So why not put this type of amendment in there to put that community above the civil rights of black people? They're telling you right there to your face, they don't care about you. They don't, unless you're gay.
But
if
that's
you're a
been
gay
the
black
goal.
man, that's a plus. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, that's been the goal from the beginning. I mean, you got to remember historically and contextually the fact of why the FBI went after Martin Luther King, right? And why they went after the black families, because they didn't want an uprising the same way that had happened. So they destroyed the nuclear family. They destroyed the black family because the people that funded MLK were upper middle class and middle class black folks that had a strong family tie and community ties. And so what they did is they broke the black community. That is how they kept them in check, right? So you had these organizations, the CIA and the FBI, they broke the black family, and now they're voting for the same people who helped design that whole idea to break up the black family. Same guy that, like I said before, locked most of the black men in jail in the 90s is in office now, and they still voted for the guy, right? It's like, at what point do you, how they always say, the left always says this, right? You're voting against your own interests. What is of interest to you in the current Democratic Party? I want to ask Black America that specifically. What is it in the Democratic Party right now that represents your community? What is it specifically? Because I can't think of any, right? It's like, I mean, unless you are in fact a gay black man, maybe that's your thing, but that's a very small niche, right? It's a very small point. They're not helping you with the crime. They're just letting all these people destroy your neighborhoods. They're letting Black Lives Matter and all the Antifa people destroy your stores and your cities, right? They're letting homelessness run about. They're not helping you get farms or doing any of these other things. They're not doing anything for you at all, period.
That's right. And
so if we, I was just gonna say, so if we do, because I want to go through a little bit of an excursus here, if my memory serves me right. So from the civil rights bill that actually didn't really do anything for black people, then you have the feminist agenda, which which emasculates the man, but they wanted to co-opt black women to join the white feminist movement for strong and independent women. So therefore, convincing black women to join the feminist liberation feminist philosophy, kicking out the black man as the government inserts themselves to become daddy government for particularly the black family, primarily black women who married the government for a government check, kicking out the black man, which is the primary source of provision and protection for the black family since even slavery times. And now the amendment today, which is not only taking on emasculated black men, but literally turning them into homosexuals to the point where now this amendment applies to them in particular, not because they're black, but because they're gay. Is that are we seeing the conspiracies here?
Yep. And think about, the Democratic Party in itself. Black Democrats or black folk Democrats vote for a party that lynched us, put us in chains, made us sit on the back of the bus, wouldn't allow us in their restaurants for years. And then you get these people up there that want to change history and say, well, the party switch is one. And then if a black person votes Republican, you say you're voting against your own interests. That's two. Three, these Democratic politicians get up there and scare black folks by saying the Republicans are going to take this away from you if you vote for them.
Put you back in chains.
And put you back in chains. So someone that is poor and really doesn't understand the political climate, they're always going to vote in their best interest. And they think voting Democrat is within their best interest because they don't want to lose.
Looking at their own history. They're not even watching what happens to them last year.
They don't care. All they care about is as long as my check is you can talk to a lot of them. As long as my check is in the bank when I get there, I'll vote for whoever they want. So it's a money thing. And their minds will change if that money stops coming. Then they can really see how the party feels about them. But as long as they're paying them, they're going to continue to vote for them.
There is merit to racism. Oh, definitely merit to racism. Just they're not looking at the right party, like at all. The party that's pushing it is the one they're voting for. So there is definitely racism in your face. Yeah. But the blacks that are promoting it are also the ones saying they should fight it while promoting it with the ones that they vote for. Secondly, you asked this question, and I have just the answer for you.
God, come on.
I have just the answer for you. This was President Trump's plan for Black America. Now, I'm going to take this down real quick so I can say this. This was not including gays, lesbians, trans, mutilators. None of those perverted freaks did he include in this plan. No white people, no Hispanics, no one else did he make this plan for. I'm going to repeat this. None of the people in this new plan that he was putting forth had any hand other than black people. He didn't include no gays, lesbians, trans, Asians, whites, Hispanics, Middle Eastern, nobody else. You want to see a plan that would have actually been useful to Black America? Here it is. If you can still call President Trump racist after this, you need to get your head examined. Anyone who called President Trump racist after this, if you see this, you need to have your brain examined. Honestly, you need to have your brain examined. Here we go. Number one, this is President Trump's promise to Black America over 4 years. 3 million new jobs for the Black community. 500,000 new Black-owned businesses. Increase access to capital in Black communities by almost $500 billion. The wet potato is sending about that much to Ukraine, to people who don't live here, and you're Black behind and sitting down there as broke as ever and ain't getting nothing from them, but you vote for them. Safe urban neighborhoods with the highest policing standards. Commit to working on a Second Step Act, and he got that one through. Access to better education and job training opportunities. Give Black churches the ability to compete for federal resources for their community. Bring better and tailored health care to address historic disparities of the Black community, diabetes and all that stuff. immigration policies that protects American jobs, as you can see in Chicago, that they're bringing all these immigrants to take Negroes housing and jobs, this would have protected them. You want to know why they wanted out? Because they hate black people. Democrats hate you. They despise you. They don't want you living. They want you dependent. Advance home ownership opportunities and enhance financial literacy in the black community. Onshoring manufacturing to advance jobs and develop opportunities for black-owned businesses. Not a single disgusting, nasty Democrat ever put anything through that. None. Not a single Democrat ever did this for black people. None. And the one person that was actually going to do it with no other races attached, no gay people attached, no sexual orientation attached, none of that disgusting crap attached. This is the one y'all booted out. He's the big flaming racist. Right?
Yeah. There's one he said why wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that, because Democrats were too busy trying to impeach him for stuff he didn't do.
That's what I was going to say.
He was giving his entire resource and time to fighting fools. This man had his entire 4 years hijacked by these nasty, disgusting racists.
That's right.
But Democrats care about you. They literally kept you. They kept you from prospering. And they've been doing it since slavery. And they still plan on doing it the next time, because they still don't want him getting in. You know why? Because if he got in, you would have a voice. You would have a voice. And you know what happened to the first iteration of the Republican Party? Free blacks. 16 or 18 of them were blacks.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because they saw the opportunity to get the rest of Black America on board and moving forward. You know who were stopping them? Democrats.
And
you know who's still
right.
doing that today? Democrats.
Democrats.
It's one of those things that I find interesting, because like I don't want to give Republicans a pass either, right? Because they've done some things that have not helped anybody as well. I mean, especially in the last 20 years, they've been all war hawks and neocons, right? The establishment hasn't let them do anything either. But like you said, Donald Trump actually had a plan and he wanted to do more, but he was hamstrung because of the Russiagate stuff and all the other impeachments and everything else that the Democrats and the deep state were going after him for. How could he have done anything for the American people? How? Like legislatively, even legally, how could he have done anything that he was supposed to do, especially with the Durham report coming out and showing all of it was bunked from the beginning? Everybody knew it was a lie. The whole Russiagate scenario was a lie from the beginning. Every single bit of it. Everybody knew. Even Obama knew it was a lie, right? So, like, how was he going to be able to do anything at this point? And that's what I don't get. Like, I'm not trying to, like I said, I'm not trying to give Republicans a pass. They haven't done much for Black America either. But then at the same time, it's like, why would they waste their energy and resources on a population that doesn't vote for them? You know, it's like one of those things. It's kind of obvious at the same time. It's like, if you know the Black population isn't going to vote for you, why would they spend money in those cities? Right? It's the same thing with why the Republicans don't run candidates in deep blue districts, right? Why would we waste money and resources trying to get somebody elected in those places that they're not going to win? Right?
That's right.
It's the same rationale. But the same thing with the Democrats. They do the exact same thing. They're not going to run a candidate in a deep red district. It's just going to waste money and resources. They don't care. But at the same time, all politicians will do the exact same thing to win the election. I have a little book that I really need to bring out. It's called How to Win an Election. It's from Roman times. It's Cicero's brother wrote it to him saying, here's how you win an election to be tribunal. And basically one of the key tenets of that is promise everything and absolutely to anybody. But then when it comes to the time of like, well, once you keep your campaign promises, oh, I'll get it next time. That's the excuse. We'll get it the next time around. We'll get it to the next issue, the next year, the next thing. Never give in to, promise everything in the world, but never give everything.
That's right.
That is the key to winning, is that you have to promise what you can. And when people come to get those promises kept and those debts that they owe, they say, I can't right now. I don't have the money.
And that was something Trump was actually trying to do. Like you said, he was actually trying to fulfill those promises. He was with the HBCUs. He said he was going to do that. He did it. You know, people don't want to give them credit for that. But the problem I have with the commentator, the person that left the message, I don't know the person, but it's like whenever you talk, and you see this on the left all the time, whenever you bring up the Democratic Party and the flaws within that party, you know, hard flaws, hard evidence, they always revert back to the Republican Party, but they can never tell you what the Republican Party did that is equal to what the Democrats did. You'd be like, oh, Democrats are racist, so are Republicans. Well, yeah, everybody has a little bit of racism, some people. So they just can't just look at their party and be like, you know what? That makes sense. They always got to say, but the Republicans or but Trump. You know, focus on your party and look at the flaws within your own party. The difference between the left and the right is that people on the right, and I'm going to say, I can speak for like black conservatives, we don't just vote just because, man. We really, really dig deep and we look at our interests. You know, we don't just vote just to vote just because. I'm not going to vote Republican just because Marlon votes Republican. You know, I'm going to dig deep into a candidate before I leave my vote. And let me get over here because we got the man of justice in the house. Give it up for the man of justice. Give it up.
Building, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, look here.
Real quick before Roderick jumps in, because once he jumps in, it's over. I'm going to piggyback real quick. If you look at the pool of Republican candidates for presidency that just announced lately, I hear that DeSantis is going to be running, and I hear that what's his name, the black guy, bald black guy, Tim Scott's going to be running. Here is the biggest problem with what that means, and I in no way, shape, or form have any qualms about saying this. They are playing correctly and directly into the Democrats' hands, 100%. Here's why. What you end up doing is diluting the pool for what could be done to help America. You're not going to win, Tim Scott. I'm just wanting you to know you ain't going to win. DeSantis, you also aren't going to win. Here's the problem with what happens with DeSantis. DeSantis is going to run into a big problem. Either he backs Trump in the debacle that's going down in court, or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, he's going to have all the Trump Republicans go against him, and they won't give him the vote. So right off the top, you're already severing nearly like what? I would say 8 to 10 million voters easily. Okay? So you covered that much ground already just out the gate before you even start campaigning. You have now left the Republican Party, as flawed as they are, but they're nowhere near as flawed as the Democrats. They leave them no option of being able to revert any of the Biden policies whatsoever. And then you give the policies back to the Democrats, who are going to win again. And once they win again, you know what's going to happen? It's going to get codified, and you can't undo it.
Mm-hmm.
And once that's codified, America is done. And that's their hope. They've been working for Soros this whole time. He said this is what he wanted to do. He said in his own words that he wanted to divide America and break it from the inside out. So how do you do that? You plant people. Bragg, paid for. Half the mayors in Democrat cities, paid for. The majority of the governors, paid for. By whom? Him. So now you have a voter pool that's diluted. And then you have the Democrats who aren't, because they're going to go all behind one person all the way. They are so, I'll have to give them credit where credit is due. You got to give Democrats the credit. They are so hell-bent on pushing one candidate that even if another candidate is good for the country, they will kibosh his plans by removing him completely from the limelight. Case in point, Bernie Sanders.
Yep.
So I'll give them credit. They know exactly how to funnel votes. Meanwhile, Republicans, on the other hand, being idiotic and stupid, you're going to spread out the votes and end up not winning anything. This is the dumb part about them, right? Honestly. You back, Mr. Obama Internet?
Yeah, that Obama Internet, you got it. You know what I mean? What's good, fellas? How y'all doing?
The topic today, sir, is well, we just listened to Mr. Belafonte back in 2005 talk about how he doesn't know whether or not there's anything salvageable about the Democrat Party, while also thinking that the Southern strategy and the party switch happened. So we were kind of trying to brainstorm about what laws that were passed that enabled only blacks, strictly blacks, nothing but blacks, so help me God, to have a upper hand in society. Can you think of one?
Zero.
Oh. So that's a no? There's none?
Zero.
Oh.
We're all the same.
Did I say that out loud?
Yeah, you can say it. Say that out. We said we thought we were the only ones that thought that.
Yeah.
No, because the thing is like people hang on to this whole civil rights thing, right? 1964, right? People seem to forget that civil rights was enshrined when it was ratified with the 14th Amendment.
Right.
Right. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 solidified civil rights, and they have bastardized that amendment so bad you can't even recognize that amendment anymore.
Look at the one in we were talking about the one he did in 21 when he put in the gay people up in there. They have exclusive rights.
Yeah. See, my thing is, and this is what I need so-called black folk to understand, right? And it really push back against this whole BS narrative that both sides are putting out about insurrection and putting out about citizenship, right? Remember, the 14th Amendment was only for the freedmen and the freedmen only. That's it, period. When you allowed them to bastardize the 14th Amendment with Roe v. Wade, you screwed up. when they allowed the Supreme Court to bastardize the citizenship clause with the Kim Wong-Ark decision, it completely diminished what it was for the freedmen, right? And Reconstruction wasn't about anything after that.
Right.
Let's keep that all the way real. When people start pushing back against this 14th Amendment and the whole debt thing with this debt ceiling thing, that's still BS, because that whole debt ceiling thing was only meant so the Confederacy could not come back, and they would not accrue. They would not have to pay the Confederacy's debt to other countries. That's why they passed that part of the 14th Amendment.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with the debt ceiling. And I wish people would actually sit down and read the history. And these are not my words. This is the words of John Bingham and Thaddeus Stevens, the curators and the authors of the 14th Amendment. This is their words. But people want to bastardize it in modern speak. And look what we have. The right to privacy comes out of the 14th Amendment. Meanwhile, you've allowed these people to create a social construct called race to completely negate you out of the 14th Amendment. What? Oh, okay.
Black rights. Black rights.
Yeah. Here's the thing, right? Even going down to the hair thing, right? Which really irritates me, right? Because if we're going to use the civil rights thing, right? Let's use the Civil Rights Act of 1964, right? One of you that's in front of a computer right now, do me a favor. Look up the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
I have
for me real quick.
I have it.
You have it? Okay. Yeah. What does Section 7 say?
Let's break that up right now, shall we? We just went over it. We just went over this. Let's go. Look at this. All right.
Read me Section 7 of the Civil Rights Act 1964.
Let me do this. Let me see if I can get this going a little faster.
You got this.
That's 5A 7. Here we go.
Okay, what does the first paragraph say?
Section 405, 42 USC 2000C-4. The commissioner is authorized upon application of a school board to make grants to such board to pay in whole or part the cost of teachers.
No, Section 7. Section 7. You're in Section 4. Section 7.
Oh, not. We want. Where's that at?
You want Section 7. Go on down.
I'm looking for 32. Okay, I'm almost there.
You're almost there. Oh yeah, wait. You just went through Section 9. No, you're Section 11. Yeah, keep going up.
Oh, it's 700.
Section 9. Or do Title 9. Do Title 7. Do Title 7. Because I forgot this is written in public law. That's my fault.
Search for that thing. Huh?
Yeah. It's written in public law format, so it's going to be Title 7.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit interesting to find it. Hold on. Title 1. Title 1. PDF. Yeah, it's a PDF, but they don't have a search option here for some reason.
Yeah, that is strange, isn't it?
I downloaded it.
Can you do Control F and type in?
See, because it says Section 207 here.
Let me see if I can.
This should be the entirety of it. What does it say?
Okay.
Or address? Maybe I can do it from that.
All right. So Title 7, right, of the Civil Rights Act, it reads: it protects employees and job applicants from employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin.
There it is. Okay, I got
it. Right. Now let's break that down. What does that mean? Right. If you are a United States national, right, your national origin is inclusive. And anything you bring into the culture is included. There you go, Title VII. There you go. Anything you add to the culture, because we do not have a definitive culture, is protected by Title VII.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so why do we need a Crown Act when Title VII, the Civil Rights Act, tells you your hairstyle is protected? What? Because due to employment purposes. Because unless your national origin, right, you don't claim any national origin, you're stateless, then I could see the discrimination. But most people in the United States are not stateless.
You opened something up there. You just said something that's going to trigger a whole nother conversation. You mentioned culture. This explains why they have to integrate the homosexual culture into the black culture.
Man, don't get me started on that.
That is why
Get
they need to
started
do
on
it.
that.
So they can place them in the same bracket as what the blacks were supposed to have to usurp authority over the black rights.
Look, you want me to call a spade for what it is?
Go ahead.
Do it.
This whole thing with this whole trans thing and all that whole 9 yards, the radicals in this, right? It is literally it's two things. One, white supremacy, and it's also the patriarchy. Play with me if you want to on this one. It's exactly what it is. Because think about the loudest voices in all of this. It is old white men or older white men, right, that are screaming about how it is to be a woman. It's actually womanizing for a man to tell it. But these women won't take a word coming from a man like us sitting here on this panel, but they'll take it from a man that puts on a dress like they do. Right? What's wrong with this picture when these people have preached about the patriarchy and white supremacy so much, and literally the white supremacy and the patriarchy is changing the culture right in front of your face? But they want to call people like us transphobes and homophobes when we're sitting here looking at the supremacy right in our face. Come on now.
Okay, you ready for something funny?
Yeah.
I think it's funny, but it's not really funny, but it's funny. All right, let's see if I can find where I was here. This was going to be low. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to scroll on down to... Here we go. All right. The term religion includes all aspects of religious observances and practices, as well as belief, unless an employer demonstrates that he is unable to reasonably accommodate the employees or prospective employees' religious observance or practice without undue hardship on the conduct of the employer's business. So right there, you're covered. And this is how the definition of what they're talking about in the Civil Rights Act. Okay, just here's where it gets beautifully complicated for black people. You ready? Because remember, this is the only thing they're bringing in. They're not bringing religions into the black plight. They're bringing the opposite of religions, hedonism, into the black plight. Listen carefully, because this is what they thought about you. They thought you were the devil. They thought you were nothing but darkness and savages.
Sure did.
Democrats. Okay, now hear me out. The terms because of sex or on the basis of sex includes but are not limited to because of or on the basis of pregnancy, birthing people. Sound familiar?
Yep.
Okay. Childbirth, abortion. Sound familiar? Okay. Related medical conditions, diabetes. That sound familiar? And women affected by pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions shall be treated the same for all employment related purposes, including receipt of benefits under fringe benefit programs as other persons not so affected but similar in their ability or inability to work, and nothing in section 2000E-2H of this title shall be interpreted to permit otherwise, unless they, of course, amend it, which is what they did in 2021.
There it is.
Correct.
That's why they start changing terms. You have to change the thing first, the culture, in order to enact that change within the confines of the protected thing, the culture. You're protecting what they are now reforming in order to make it protected by this new amendment. You know who gets the backbench? Black people.
Every single time. But they want to sit here on social media and pop their pee for them, huh?
Now, this is stuff that's in the books. This is not
I
a
know.
matter of interpretation or
Right.
or some other kind of site sourcing. This is directly from the government's own
Yep.
archive
Yeah.
that they signed into law.
Yep.
The way to look at this, you have to look at how the left uses words and terms, right? Whenever they want something to be changed, they change the wording, they change the definition, they change the way that the word is used, right?
Right. They changed the meaning.
Exactly. They change the meaning of a word in order to fit what they want for their narrative or for their legislation. They have to change the term first in the culture and then get it passed into the legislation. That's the thing that people don't understand, is that when we say, well, what's the big deal if you use this pronoun, or what's the big deal if you change this term, is because it does matter, because it's all a part of the game that you're not understanding. They're playing a game that you don't understand and you don't know the rules to, and that's the problem.
Can't win.
I remember growing up, you know, back to the LBGTQRSTUVWXYZ community. I remember when the term queer was an insult.
Yeah.
Growing up in the 90s, calling a gay person that was an insult. You know, you couldn't say that. Now it's thrown out there and it's a normal word. And to allude what Coy was saying, they changed terminology to make it more acceptable.
Yeah.
Oh, they do it all the time. And just look, just staying on the LGBT thing, right? A second, right? When I was growing up, I knew that fag was a cigarette. I had English neighbors. And down here in the deep South, I had English neighbors. Oh, we're out smoking a fag. That's what it was. And all of a sudden, they take that word. And now in England, you will go in front of a civil rights tribunal for calling a cigarette a fag. The original name of the damn thing that they came up with. Right?
It's
the rebranding.
It's funny because the etymology of the word, right? So a fag is literally a stick, right? And a bundles of sticks. I'm not trying to get us in trouble. Is a faggot,
you're right.
Right?
This is for education purposes only.
This is literally, this is the definitions of where the words come from, right? So the reason they were called a cigarette is because it was a stick, right? It's a stick. It's a cigarette. That's where the word comes from. That's where the usage came from, because the original English etymology of the word was fag and faggot, right? To describe a bundle of sticks. I mean, it's still kind of true because they're two sticks playing sword fights. You know, that's what that is. So it still fits.
But even in that, well,
I got it. I got it. Okay.
But even
you
in
know
that
what?
same vein, isn't being gay technically being happy?
Yes.
Yeah, gay was happy. Like Gaylord is happy Lord.
Yeah, terminologies, man. Look at the N word. You know, between the and the You know, they took a word that was used to degrade us, changed the terminology. Now it's acceptable. You know what I mean? Acceptable to who? I don't know.
What's the Spanish word for black?
Black. You know what? Let's don't go down that road, because we have to blame the Portuguese. We have to blame the Portuguese and Pope Alexander for a whole lot of crap right now.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to go down that road right now.
About the Pope.
That's another conversation.
I can go down a deep rabbit hole with the Vatican.
So hear me out. Hear me out. Let's get to the crux and back on topic real quick before we shut this down, because I have to be dipped out here soon. What we've established so far is this. From the instigation of the American colonies and the bringing over and use of slavery, from the time that America created its own niche in the world stage, it was one of the first to ever abolish and hate slavery. Okay. Not by the hands of the people who wanted to keep slavery, by the way, by the people who are still around today that wanted back, the Democrats. You might have called them some other name back then, but they were the exact same mind. It's a philosophy. And if you listen to how they talk about migrants, you'll understand how they think about you black people. Who's going to clean our toilets? Who's going to pick our fruits? Who's going to do all the menial labor because that's all they're worth? That's how they look at people. They're lofty. They're elites. Okay. They're part of what we consider the caste system. Is what all it is. Today's society of racism is just an on steroids HGH version of the caste system. Okay. So they do it really well. There were no laws ever passed by any Democrat or Republican that would ever help the African American. Not one law, not one institution that ever helped. All they did was said something that sounded good to the illiterate black people and made them want to vote for that illiteracy. Today, you were offered information about one individual, one, like him or hate him, that had an actual plan that was targeted like it should have been around the 40 acres and a mule time, targeted directly with no other pork fat, fringe benefits, names, anything else attached to it, directly for you. And your ignorant behind called him a racist. So, you know what I have to say to those of you that think that and thought that? I'm glad you're suffering. I am super glad that your towns are run by gangs and that every day you lose a member. You know why I'm glad? Because you were stupid enough to put yourself there. And every year you do the same dumb crap to yourself. I will take Chicago as a great example. You finally booted out Beetlejuice, another gay one. You booted that out and you brought in a disgusting human being in the next one. That's going to be just as bad, if not worse. Proving your ignorance over and over again because you love to see your own demise. That's the only thing I could think of that makes you keep doing this, is that you love the position you're in and you don't mind being at the back of the bus. In fact, you kind of like it. You get to be lazy. Hate me all you want, but prove me wrong. Prove me wrong by not doing the same crap again in the next 4 years. You won't, though.
Here's the funny thing, Marlon, right? And as those same folks you talk about run around and talk about the privilege of white folks, and they talk about the privilege of this particular type of people, and I'm like, look, you know what Appalachia and inner cities have in common? What do they have in common, guys? Regulations have beat them. No, yeah. Why? Why are they in abject poverty? Because of federal regulations beat them into the ground, right? But these white people in Appalachia, right? Here's where they have a disadvantage. They don't have cell phones out there, and we're talking like the deep coal mine towns of West Virginia. They don't have cell phone signal to go to these big towns and get jobs. They're destitute. What's the difference with the inner cities?
Nothing.
Only difference is they have a cell phone, right? They gave them Obama and Biden phones, right? And here's the messed up part. Here's the real messed up part about this whole thing. All those people that are copping the border, they're not going to Appalachia. They're going to the inner cities, right? To compete for jobs that black folks are even barely getting, or taking over certain industries in those areas, taking money out of black folks' mouths. But we've only heard a small bunch of people say something about that. Now, I might say they might say and call me a xenophobe and this, that, and the third, but I'm telling you, the evidence is in the pudding. Look at what they're doing in New York. You had all these homeless people in New York. What did they do? They rolled out tents, right? Didn't they? Yep. They rolled out tents for the incoming migrants, but all these homeless people out here. Right. Look at what they did in Venice, in outside of Venice, California. Karen Bass is the mayor. They went down and was literally cleaning out homeless encampments because why? It doesn't look good for the city, but it was your economic policies that destroyed these people. So you don't want to get rid of the economic policy that you created to make these people destitute and impoverished. You just want to just take away all their belongings and watch them rot in the street. This is what your current Democrat Party is doing to people of all shades that are not in a particular class of people.
Facts.
But people go ahead and keep voting for these people and continue the destitution, right? And what's even more, and I'm gonna close with this real quick, 1 minute, right? All of these areas have rampant drug use.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the other one.
You gotta call a spade for what it is.
They also rolled out when they rolled out the tents, they got them big screens and also nice plushy couches for them to sit in. There's pictures of it online, but like, he's not wrong. And this is the thing I've been trying to say about the black communities. They got to get out of the cities, man. Like, the cities are killing you. They're killing your families. You need to get out. Like, it's not what it was back in the 50s and 60s. You can live out in the country now. There's nothing stopping you. Go out there, build communities out there in the small towns. Build farming communities. There's tons of things to do out there. Don't let the inner cities kill your children. Like, just don't. There's nothing good in the cities anymore. And there's remote work. There's all kinds of things that you can do. You don't have to be stuck in one place anymore.
And change
So
that
I have
generational curse.
Yes.
Vote.
So
Change the
I have a-
generational curse and quit voting Democrat. That's
Well, I
right.
have so I've got. Is it possible then? I mean, because we're seeing the Asian community do this. Like the Asian community has created their own enclaves within an area. Is it possible for the Black community to say, "Hey, f all of this,
Could. Yeah.
forget the government,
But
they
forget
won't.
integration"?
I
They
got
won't.
you. I
They
got
won't.
you, Mr. Lee.
They won't, though.
Yeah, I got you, Mr. Lee, right? And I know where you live, and I'm gonna put you out there on Front Street, right? Just not too far from you, there's a town called Freedom. All Black folks building small homes out in this area got their own zip code, bringing in their own businesses.
Great.
They
Right,
Uncle
just right up
Tom.
there. Black Wall Street, the new Black Wall Street is just on East Side Atlanta. Right,
Uncle Tom.
and Killer Mike and T.I. are pumping so much money into that place. Everything, all the shops, everything
Uncle
in
Tom's.
there, it's all Black owned.
Uncle Tom's.
Right. So yeah, it's happening. But see, here's the thing. Here's the funny thing, right? When so-called Black folk do this, oh, you're trying to be segregationist. What? Look, people, those of you that are gonna sit here and say this and try to counter me on this, look. Black folk, so-called Black folk, went through Jim Crow, where the white man told them you cannot participate in the white capitalist system. So what did they do? They created their own system inside the system to survive. And they're doing it again. But it worked until they came in and burnt all six. They either burnt or they ravaged and pillaged the other 5 Black Wall Streets after Greenwood, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now people are trying to do it again because they're getting away from the cities, getting away from the bureaucracy, and now they're called segregationists. Make that make sense, y'all.
You can't.
Make that make sense.
And in closing, 1.3 million people are trying to run the other 322 million of us. I'm going to say that again. 1.3 million Americans who identify as Black and gay want to run your life and tell you that you're discriminating against them, and you are making up 322 million in balance. You still think you ought to listen to them? They're ants. They're ants, and you ought to be a boot and have no problem squashing the ever-living crap out of their agenda. We outnumber them. They're like the locusts and the ants in the Ants movie. They outnumber us. If they ever got that into their head, we'd be doomed. Get it into your head. We outnumber them. The sane thinking people outnumber the crazies. And it's about time you start moving like you outnumber them. Stop making them force their crap on you, their perversion, their sickness on you. Stop making you think that that's normal, that you should accept it. You shouldn't, and you should never accept it. Do not accept it.
That's right.
The world will never progress with 2 gay men or 2 gay women. Let's get that straight first off. You can't procreate. You're a dead end. You're way even worse than a loose end. You're a dead end. Put you all on an island that you have your own time, and eventually we'll go back in 10 years and none of you will be there.
That's right.
You don't rule things around here. People who want family and know what sanity is rule around here. And it's about time we put our shoes on and start stomping some ants. Like literally. I don't mean that in a violent, killing people way. You put them under your boot. You put them in their place, which is behind you. They don't belong in front. Just make that fully clear. I really enjoyed having you here, Mr. Justice. You should be here more often. You gonna be here Friday?
Depends on what time Friday.
Same time, bat channel. 3:30 my time, 6:30 Eastern.
Yeah, I can. I'll be able to make it because
Okay, cool.
I'll be able to make it.
Maybe we should discuss the presidential candidates that came out of the woodworks and see what would happen.
Yeah, we can do that.
Because there's a lot of good information there.
Yeah, so we'll
Go
talk
Ron
about
Paul.
We'll coming to up
Right?
presidential stuff.
Let's go. Like, heck, I'll
well,
throw my name in the hat while y'all BSing. I mean, you know what I'm saying. But I know by day 6, they already gonna have a hit on me. So I won't survive past day 8 because I'm telling you, look, if I was president, straight up, this whole system would be torn all the way down,
all the way to the ground.
Right?
Yep.
I would burn it straight
See if
down.
I can find that book too.
That would be it. Game over.
That's
Game
what
over.
everybody burned the whole system down.
no more race, no more any of that bastardization, and Congress is going to work until their fingertips are bloody, and then
I
when I'm
agree.
satisfied, that's it.
And you got to talk like this.
No, I'm gonna be sitting in the Oval Office like y'all brought me legislation yet? I didn't say y'all could go home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
We
right
in
here
OT,
waiting
baby.
on you, Ben.
We in unpaid OT too. Let's do it.
Right? Like, look,
Term limits, executive order.
but no
So,
president
so
is
Friday-
gonna. But see, it's this thing. No president is ever going to have the balls, right,
well, one
to
tried.
flex his power given to him in Article 2 to make sure Congress does what they're supposed to do.
I think if he gets back in, he'll flex it. That's what I believe will happen. If he gets
Oh,
back in,
he's mad.
He's pissed off at this point. He's mad. So
He's mad.
I think he's gonna do something. I think he's gonna do something because he's mad now. When he gets
He's
big
coming.
mad, he do dumb stuff. So
He's coming for
There you
blood.
go.
He's
Yeah.
coming for blood. Watch, and they're
So
scared.
Friday we will discuss all the candidates. We'll discuss everything has to do with the election and see where each. I'm sure they have their platform at some point. We'll find the platform and see exactly if what they say matches up to their history because all of them are politicians except for one. So we'll see if their history of what they're saying now actually matches what they have said or have done, and we'll do all of that and run through that. So in the meantime, and in between time, Mr. Lee.
You better like, share, comment, subscribe.
Oh,
Savage
Lord.
Patriots out.
We see you later.